Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the American Graduate School in Paris 2013 graduation ceremony. Would the graduating students please come in? Please stand for the AJS faculty. Please be seated. Dr. Eileen Servideo, President of the School of International Relations and Diplomacy.
I want to welcome all the friends and family of our graduating students. I want to welcome the friends of AGS, those who come and advise us, donate money, time, and everything else. So thank you for being here. I want to welcome our staff, our faculty that can be here. They all couldn't be here. And the students, the ones that are not graduating. I would like to welcome our commencement speaker, Mr. Amir Atahahi. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I would like to thank Professor Guillaume Hoffman, who is the directress of the Department of International Negotiations at Seoul University, one of our partner universities, where we do a dual degree. The members of our academic committee who are sitting on stage, Dr. Yates and Dr. Annan. Oh, Dr. Annan and Dr. Yates, let me be a gentleman. Dr. Ali Fetsimi, the president of the AGS School of Business and Economics. And finally, because I haven't forgotten about you, I'd like to welcome our graduating students. This is, or should be, a very special day for you. A hot one. Sorry about that. I hope you remember this day all your life and you really live it to the fullest. I now present you Professor Ali Fatimi.
You see, this is 50 pages, but the font is 72, so don't worry. Well, I'm very careful with the students because I know you don't like long lectures. And I have those, AGS has those 3-hour classes that you suffer in them, and I do too. And I don't mind when you look at your watches, but I get really mad when you start shaking your wrist. So I hope today it will not get to that stage. Basically, students think that teachers are mean. And teachers think that the deans are mean. And I think they're both right. But once I was a dean, I must admit. You know, deans have a very bad reputation in academia. There's a story that once a very good professor of ethics, man who everybody loved him, he died. And he was taken directly to the gates of heaven. And there he saw all his colleagues, everyone that he knew, waiting behind the gate. He was just wondering, you know, why don't they go in? And then he heard the sirens and, you know, the special cars with the light and so on. And he looked in the car, and there was a dean. And he went right to the gates to heaven. So he was really flabbergasted, and he went over and he said to the gatekeeper, "What's happening? All these Nice professors are waiting at the gates, and this dean gets in, and the gatekeeper said, professors come here every day, but it's only once in a long while that a dean or a president makes it to heaven. Of course, there are exceptions. And this reputation of the deans being mean, then in the Ted Sorensen's biography of John Kennedy, President Kennedy had a very good assistant, Mike George Bundy. And before becoming assistant to President Kennedy, he was dean of Harvard. And President Kennedy told his cabinet that one day a faculty member at Harvard, inadvertently being careless, referred to Dean Bundy as an SOB. And a student actually failed his teacher, and he reported that to the dean. Now this is President Kennedy who's talking. And he said, so the professor was called to the dean's office, the professor who had called the dean an SOB. And Kennedy says, well, he was in that office for 1 hour. The first half an hour, he apologized for calling the dean an SOB, and the second half an hour, the dean apologized for being one. All this introduction to tell you, I was talking about how mean the students are. Once I was a dean, and one of my jobs was to read professors' evaluations. You should have been there. Amazing things. The one that really sticks in my memory is the student wrote that Professor so-and-so is a fantastic teacher. Whatever he misses and doesn't cover during the semester, he puts on the final exam. They told me that I should charge you, present the charge. I don't know how can one charge somebody? I can only talk about a few experiences and leave you with those general ideas. The first one that comes to my mind is some time ago in a remote town in Ohio, in a school, the little girl was not paying attention to the teacher and was drawing. So the teacher went over, looked at the desk and said, what are you drawing? She said, God. The teacher said, God? Nobody knows what God looks like. And the student said, they know now. Have the courage of your conviction. Be daring, do things. Don't worry about other people agreeing or disagreeing with you. That's very important. The second thing which comes to my mind, before I get to the real task that I'm here for, to introduce our distinguished speaker, is I graduated many, many years ago. I won't tell you how many years. But still one thing from that commencement speech has remained in my mind. And that is much more true about your generation than it was about mine. And the speaker said, the world has changed. None of you are going to get a job and keep it for 30 years and retire in it. You may change 5, 6 jobs in your lifetime. Therefore, be flexible and welcome new opportunities. Don't be afraid. Safe things in life are neither interesting nor rewarding. It's only difficult things and hard things that in the long run will give you the satisfaction. The speaker today is someone that I, for one, envy not being like him. He's an exceptional person. I'll just tell you why. When he finished his studies, he returned to Iran and he got a job as opera critic of a major newspaper, the most important newspaper in town. That's in 1968. By 1970, he was editor-in-chief of that journal, which at the time was the biggest journal in the Middle East in 2 years. And he remained editor of that journal until the 1979 revolution in Iran. And since then, you all have seen his bio note, I hope. He has written 11 books. He speaks and writes in at least 3 that I'm sure of: English, 4, English, French, Arabic, and of course the native language, Persian. And every major journal that you can think of. He writes for the New York Times in the United States, for Post, for Wall Street Journal. I'm sure I'm going to miss a few, but you have the notes. In France, for Nouvel Observateur, for Le Monde. In UK, for Times of London, Daily Telegraph, The Guardian, and also for German newspapers. He has interviewed, when I say that I'm envious of him, I lost count, but I think he must have interviewed and met personally at least 8 presidents of the United States. Richard Nixon, I guess, starting from Richard Nixon. If I'm not, he will tell you if I'm mistaken. He does have that habit to correct me all the time. And the people that he has met, the issues that he raises with these people, seldom you can find a journalist which has such depth in his knowledge of the world and the courage that I mentioned, daring, going places, doing things, asking the questions that no one else dares to ask. And I'm truly honored and privileged to have a friend like that and have the opportunity to invite him to your commencement and to have him come and speak to your class. Mr. Amir Tahiri.
Well, I'm going to make a few remarks. They will not be academic, so you don't need to go to sleep. And in my remarks, I wish to share with you some observations I've made during a very long, as Dr. Fatemi explained, experience with journalism, especially focused on international affairs. Because as I understand, some of you do international affairs, and you will soon be facing an entirely different world compared to the world which I faced. Since Dr. Fatemi mentioned President Nixon, I could start with him because he claimed that under different circumstances, he could have become a very good pope. And maybe he had become one without knowing it. To study international politics, let alone understand it, requires immersion in the real world. But what if, as Bourdieu has pointed out, you know who Bourdieu is? Has pointed out, the real world itself no longer exists. What if what we regard as reality is nothing but a Borgesian chimera in a virtual world that we imagine as it imagines us? What if Guy Debord, someone I would not often quote, was right in claiming that politics had become a branch of entertainment industry? There has, of course, always been interaction between university and the real world. The real world is the sphere of uncertainties, imponderables, and black swans. The university, on the other hand, aims at taking those uncertainties and codifying them into certainties. Because such a process requires time, the certainties established at university are always bound to lag behind the uncertainties of the real world. So what you need to do is to take that into account and always be ready to gap this time span between the real world and what you have learned. Today, what we could note is a widening gap between perceptions reinforced and in some cases even generated by images and reality. Faced with most images of reality, we have this sneaky sensation that we have already been there, done that, and even bought the t-shirt. It is as if the real world has lost its virginity. There is no longer anything which we could contemplate with fresh eyes. Another war? Well, we have already seen it in the form of fuming and bombed buildings and vehicles in Baghdad or somewhere else, and the long refugees heading for the unknown. We have seen it all. Another election, we have already seen the virtual and ritual televised debates, the Cecil B. DeMille style rallies, and in the so-called developing world, the index fingers dyed in crimson ink. We have seen it all. A World Cup football match, nowhere could we see it with greater intimacy than on television. Even when it comes to tourism, we know the sandy beaches of the Caribbean and even the sites of Machu Picchu long before and with greater effect than actually visiting them. There is no untrodden snow. The net effect of this new world of as-if reality is the sharp decline in certainties and whatever value is still attached to them. Until a few decades ago, scholarship, especially political philosophy, deemed it as its principal task to question and challenge certainties. Nietzsche thought that because culture was clutching calcified truths, one needed to sound them out relentlessly. He dubbed himself philosopher with a hammer and spent his career tapping that hammer against Western ideas that he believed had become hollow idols. Over the past century or so, the past as traced by the hammer has generated a whole brood of offspring, often engaged in incestuous relationship with one another. Existentialism, relativism, the cult of the absurd, multiculturalism, political correctness, anti-Americanism, to cite but a few. The result is virtual paralysis when it comes to obtaining a coherent view of the world. This is how Jerry Brown, one of Dr. Fatemi's favorite politicians, California's perennial governor, puts the way things have become. I see the world in fluid, contradictory, emerging, interactive, unknowing terms, and with that kind of circuitry, I don't feel the need to say what might happen. By circuitry, of course, Brown might mean sophistry. What matters, however, is not whether he feels the need to say what is going to happen, but whether he cares one way or the other. The past has all but been blurred into nothing except as fictionalized, disjointed narratives. Today there are, to be sure, many more historians than any other time in human history, but what we have is salami slice history, specialized narratives of narrow and specific aspects of the past. I've just finished reading a fascinating history of sign writing under Al-Hakim Be'amrillah, the Fatimid Caliph, over 1,000 years ago, in 1017. I learned that he was the first person to come up with the idea of T-shirts inscribed with messages and logos. He was also the first to inscribe messages and religious propaganda the marketing slogans of his day on the strips of cloth carried by donkeys in Cairo bazaars. The knowledge I have gained from that book by a tenured American academic may stand me in good stead for dinner table anecdotes, or for an example quoting to you now, but it would not offer me an insight into the Fatimid experience. This is history as color piece, as we say in journalistic lingo. The past is a kaleidoscope that has been broken into endless pieces of conflicting colors. With the past thus disposed of, we are now doing our best to abolish the present as well. What interests us is the future, what comes next. This is the technique of fiction. We always want to see what happened. You know, the king and queen loved each other, the queen became sick, what next? So look at the news. Much of it is about things that are going to happen. Who is preparing to run for president in 4 years' time? That's news. What will happen in the international conference planned for some time in the future, and maybe it will never take place, like the Syrian peace conference right now. What is in the report on such and such a topic that is going to be published soon? And in a lighter register, who is going to be Jennifer Aniston's next boyfriend? Of course, I may be out of kilter because maybe Aniston is already forgotten. I don't know if you have. What people, including governments, might or might not do is more interesting than what they have already done. I remember the old interviews was about things that politicians had done, not that things that are going to do. At most, it was about things that they were doing. Anyway, the salami slicing of time also affects information, which constitutes our practical knowledge of the world. Thanks to mass tourism, many of us have been to far more places than any of our ancestors might have dreamt of. People forget that Marco Polo, the famous globetrotter, did not manage to visit more than half a dozen countries. And I'm sure he did not go to Georgia, at least, so that's 5 countries, during 3 decades of business or travel tourism. Today, the concierge in your apartment block in Paris has done much better. The difference is that during her numerous package travels, she stays in hotels where almost everyone else is like her. She eats the same food as she would eat here in Paris and hears the same music, including folk music that she hears in Paris. For example, in the magnificent trio of Peruvian buskers in Metro Bastille. She buys the local handicrafts designed under a project sponsored by the United Nations and the European Union. As a result, all artifacts all over the world resemble each other. She window shops at boutiques that sell the same brand names all over the world. Having toured the great everywhere, she comes back laden with videotaped footage showing her along a cute camel in Cairo or a bored bird in Barbados. When the Syrian conflict started more than 2.5 years ago, she reassured all around her that things would not get out of hand. Les Syriens sont si gentils, because she had seen them like that. We must, of course, welcome the democratization of information thanks to tourism, television, and more recently, the internet. Democracy requires an informed public. The downside, however, may be that we could end up with a half-informed or ill-informed public. An Egyptian friend of mine, who is a senior banker, complains that since the Arab Spring, his driver offers him a lecture on all issues every morning while driving him to work. I welcome this, because interviewing the driver, and for once now I'm not talking of the taxi driver, I was impressed that he had abandoned with total in the total indifference that he projected under Hosni Mubarak. Now he's interested. But the downside is that burning several steps, he's developing the symptoms of an ailment that took more than 2 centuries before affecting Western democracies. That ailment is the desacralization not only of the political life, but also of political power as a whole. Not only of politicians, but also of the noble pursuit of politics itself. He's not there yet, but he's moving towards that slippery slope that has led many in the more mature democracies to cynicism, self-loathing, and ultimately nihilism. Half-truths, slanted information, and misconceptions of all kinds are further reinforced through the echo chamber that is the internet. One could design and develop a political and philosophical climate of one's own liking and feel comfortable in it, in total or partial ignorance of all other possible climates. However, there are important questions that we would ignore at our peril. Is there such a thing as a universal moral law, truths that are objective and permanent rather than subjective and contingent, ethical codes that are anchored in some form of transcendence rather than human choice, human desires, and human invention? Some people, at times in desperation, would run to religion for answers. This is what prompted André Malraux to prophesy that the 21st century would be religious or would not be. We believe we have worse because we are created in God's image, asserts the believer. But even more basic is the declaration that we have value simply because God valued us. If, as Nietzsche claimed, God is dead, then all is permitted. But could we hang our coat on the peg of religion? I don't think so. That would be the wrong path to take. We have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is, although often honored more in breach, we must still aspire to fulfill. Another problem that I see in dealing with present international affairs is what I would call the inflation of communication. Leaders of today talk too much. In the old times, not so long ago, when I was a young journalist, political leaders spoke sparingly, and when they spoke, often they had something to say. For example, I used to pride myself in the fact that I was one of 3 or 4 journalists who ever interviewed Deng Xiaoping. But now I see that Xi Jinping, the new Chinese leader, he has been there just a few months and he has talked to almost everybody. It seems that he has been giving interviews left, right, and center to whoever passed through Beijing. The number of speeches that the current French president has made, I've lost count. But how many speeches did de Gaulle made? Or for that matter, Pompidou, whom I also interviewed, made. This constant inflation of communication creates a kind of sandstorm in which nothing is fixed. People have no time to absorb what is happening, to distill them, and to form an informed opinion about it. We now have, of course, another kind of inflation, which is the covering of events by citizen journalists. You know how many people covered the Spanish Civil War? Maybe 20. But now look at the Syrian civil war. Every day I receive 200 video messages from all over Syria. What am I going to do with that? How many people covered the civil war in the Congo shortly after its independence in 1960? Very few. But now, whatever happens anywhere in the world, you have not only the citizen journalists, but despite the economic problems of many newspapers and many other media, they send lots and lots of people to cover them. I once interviewed Idi Amin in 1975. You remember him? He was the Ugandan dictator, and he was touring Islamic capitals as part of his campaign to revive the caliphate, presumably with himself as the new caliph. And he believed that all the problems would be solved provided Muslim nations were given two things. First, he had bought an 8mm camera with which he filmed. He had somebody film him wherever he went. And secondly, he said, apart from giving everybody an 8mm camera, every nation should also have a hydrogen bomb. And then that would be the end of our troubles. To him, that was progress. And of course, as Ogden Nash noted, progress might have been all right once, but it has now gone on far too long. In our modern world, the fact that geography has been almost abolished by speed, many believe that history too has also been abolished. Because Kabul is 6 hours flight from Paris, it is hard for us to imagine that in terms of different traditions, for example, of the European Enlightenment, it may be a different historical and cultural time zone altogether. We understand historic geographic culture less, and as a result, we fail to understand also the historic distance. Thus, your task in studying, understanding, and analyzing international politics is far more difficult than when we faced the world. And I don't feel sorry for you because I see you are all robust and energetic and roaring to go. But I have to warn you that it's not so easy to find a handle to what is going on. In the old world, you had maybe a few hundred actors. They did things. We reported them. People respected politics. People respected their leaders. Governments still could do something. But nowadays, with the weakening of the nation state, with the emergence of supranational bodies, the European Union, and many other things, is a case of the shrinking presidents everywhere, the shrinking decision makers everywhere. All they can do is to go through the motions and talk. All they can do is to give interviews to whoever passes and keep this as if world going on. But you have the moral duty to be able to not only to study but to present the reality of the world we live in, the world in which future generations will live in. But to do that, you must have a backbone of your own. You cannot approach the world with wishy-washy, transitory, from one CNN bulletin to another, from one fashion to another, and hope to understand the deep, I don't want to say tragedy of human existence, but the beauty or tragic beauty of human existence. Going back to opera, we must always remind Armand that the son of Provence is unlike any other son. Thank you.
I appreciate it. I believe what you said is true. We do have to remember, though, that things do not have to be the way they are. They can change. Now, but thank you very much. Allow me just to take 2-3 minutes to talk to the graduate students. You all can leave. Today you end your studies at AGS. You have been with us 1 year, the business students, 2 years, the IR&D students, or longer. You are surely different than when you started with us. Your minds have opened a bit more, I hope. You may see things differently. During the time you have been part of AGS, during all this time you're part of AGS, and for us, if you want it or not, you'll always be part of AGS. Please do not allow AGS to be just part of your past. Keep AGS with you always. You have learned a lot at AGS, and I'm going to give you some examples, just in case you don't know what they are. Analytical skills, research skills, how to synthesize information, how to think critically, how to write clearly and well. You have made friends and contacts that you did not have 2 years ago. You have learned another language, sort of. And you have lived and survived in another culture. All of these skills and these experiences will serve you in your future. They are precious tools that can help you in so many ways in so many areas. So use them. They were given to you by AGS, not for you to earn a piece of paper that you're going to get in a few minutes, but to allow you to do whatever you need to do or want to do well. Keep AGS with you, but also give back to AGS. Give back by staying involved. Be active members of the alumni. Donate time. Donate money. Speak about AGS to your friends, your colleagues, and your employers. Recommend AGS to potential students. Help future AGSs as you yourself gain experience. Come back and speak to these students. And please come back and visit us, because we're going to miss you. The more AGS grows, the more your diploma grows, let's face it. I know that you're entering in a world where there's a financial crisis. You may not get your dream position immediately. Please don't get discouraged. Now, there's a legend that Winston Churchill gave a commencement speech where he got up and said, "Never give up." It's a legend. He didn't say never get up. He didn't bellow it 2 times and walk off the stage, but we like to believe that. That's not what he said. What he actually said, and this is just part of it because it was a fair-sized speech, never give in. Never give in. Never, 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 in nothing great or small, large or petty, never give in, except to consider, and I wish I had my glasses, to consider honesty and good sense. What I'm telling you is to never give up. It's not always going to be easy, but never give up. But honestly, knowing you, I know I don't know you all that well, I've never taught you, but I've heard your names, I've read your thesis, your proposals, I've seen you around a lot now. I don't think you will give up. And you know why I don't think that? It's because you came to AGS and you didn't give up at AGS. And I'm sure many of you in the last year or 2 years or more, you very often wanted to give up. I'm sure a lot of you said to yourselves, I am never going to be able to finish all this reading. Why do I look at Dr. Annan when I say that? Nor will I be able to write all these papers. And I'm not going to be able to stand up and give this presentation. And of course, I will never, never, never finish and defend my thesis properly. But guess what? You did. You did. In choosing to come to AGS, you opted for an institution having very high academic standards. Perhaps you didn't realize that when you applied to us, but you certainly learned it soon enough. But you didn't give up. You stayed here. You met the challenge. I don't know if your parents and friends realize how difficult we are. We are difficult. We are very proud of you because we know how hard you had to work for this degree. And you can, and you should be, truly proud of yourselves. And also, be proud of the education AGS gave you. In the future, when you're with friends and colleagues who are speaking up their MBAs from Northwestern, London School of Economics, or their masters from, I don't know, Harvard, Yale, Oxford, Cambridge, please do not feel too sorry for them. Just announce, and try not to sound like you're bragging too much, that your own degree came from AGS in Paris. Thank you very much and congratulations.
Okay, Dr. Sevilla will now confer the degrees to the students in the School of International Relations and Diplomacy. Jenny Awatar, Mauritius, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy.
This is the part where we all cry.
Andrea Badiola Mateos, Spain, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, cum laude, and Master of Law in Diplomatie et Négociation Stratégique from l'Université Paris Sud. Sanela Bajrovic, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, cum laude. Tram Bui, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, cum laude. David Feldman, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, summa cum laude. Richard Heater, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, summa cum laude. Simon Hertzman, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, summa cum laude. Cassandra Hesla, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, cum laude. Hillary Faulkner, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, cum laude. George Madison, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, summa cum laude. Putibiola Nasir, Indonesia, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, magna cum laude. James Ogren, Ghana, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, cum laude. Amy Pope, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, magna cum laude. Erika Rodriguez, Venezuela, Spain, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, magna cum laude, and Master 2 in Diplomatie et Négociation Stratégique from l'Université Paris-Sud. Shireen Smith, Barbados, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, magna cum laude. Carlisle Taylor, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, cum laude, and Master of Arts in Peace and Conflict Resolution from Arcadia University. Nelson Torbe Olguin, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy. We now wish to acknowledge the following students who will complete requirements for the Master Program in January when we do not have a graduation ceremony. Anna Bantig, Philippines, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, in absentia. Regina Casati, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy. Edina Csongor, Hungary, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy et Master 2 in Diplomatie et Négociations Stratégiques from l'Université Paris-Sud.
They get kissed in the fall.
Ryan Godfrey, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy and Master of Arts in Peace and Conflict Resolution from Arcadia University in absentia. Jabed Hashmi, USA, a Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy and Master 2 in Diplomatie et Négociations Stratégiques from l'Université Paris-Sud. Daria Korkoshko, Russia, Spain, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy in absentia. Joseph Tarville, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy in absentia. Dr. Fatimi will now confer the degrees for students in the School of Business and Economics.
It's the quality that counts, not the quantity.
Jacqueline Luce, USA, France, International Master of Business Administration in absentia. Jason Rivera, USA, International Master of Business Administration. Ugochukwu Umezurike, Nigeria, International Master of Business Administration. Please join me in giving one more round of applause for the 2013 graduates. And I invite the representative of the class of 2013, James Ockren, to come forward. And James will say a few words on behalf of his class.
Hello everyone, officially. I'm extremely honored to have my 15 minutes of fame on this special day. This is a milestone for us, so we're glad to have our distinguished professors, guests, administrators, families, and friends here to share it with us. Truly, you make this day that much more special for us. So, what's next for us? I remember at my undergraduate commencement speech, the message that was given to us was something along the lines of dare to dream, or some other fairy tale theme similar to that. What I didn't realize was that the message was incomplete. I believe that the message was deliberately kept incomplete to avoid breaking our young and naive hearts. It is only after completing graduate school that you realize that the rest of the message is dare to dream, to actually find a real job with a bachelor's degree. It's an insightful message because these are hard times, and being armed with a master's degree doesn't necessarily instill confidence. So it's tough for us. But let's put things in perspective. We are now officially Masters of International Relations. You know, the idea of being a master of anything is amazing to me. The way I see it, it's the equivalent of being part of the starting squad of a professional sports team, because we are the cream of the crop, right? And when you throw in the fact that we are masters of international relations, it almost feels like we could be deployed in all the troubled parts and conflict-ridden parts of the world, and with just one masterful word, or a sentence at most, we will bring peace. We are, after all, masters. Right, guys? Thank you. I can prove this with just a small example. Like our predecessors, we had to face the 7 required courses. At first, I'm sure that many of us knew very little or nothing about the contents of these courses. But today, I can masterfully summarize each of these to show how far I've come. Of course, that includes my mates. But I'm secretly hoping that my colleagues will back me up on this one, or else there will be serious questions about what the hell I've been doing in the last 2 years. So please back me up, guys. Here we go. Course name: Factors and Theories of Analysis in International Relations and Diplomacy. It sounds complex, and it is. But the graduate's evolved perspective allows him or her to summarize this for you into main theory and rival theory. That is all. Next, course name: Research Methodology and Design. I have to wipe my brow for this one. This one is arguably the most daunting one of the 7. Thank you, Dr. Yates. But what did the graduate learn from the most scientific course in the program? Simply put, how to talk about books you've never read. It's a very difficult skill, and Dr. Yates taught us that, so we really appreciate it. Next, course name: International Public Law. Now this one sounds sophisticated, probably because the professor who teaches it, Professor Bismuth, has one of the best French-English accents you will ever hear. So the graduate's summary on this one: use cogents. I never learned Latin, but look at me today. Next, course name: International Organizations. How does the graduate summarize this course? I could say the UN, but that's too mainstream. Did you know that there was an international organization called the Association for Pet Loss and Bereavement? Yeah. Indeed, the graduate knows how to look beyond the obvious. Next, course name: Current Issues in International Relations. They're all saying, oh my God. The graduate's knowledge was expanded in this course. And really, only one word appropriately embodies this development: Wikipedia. Next. Don't tell Dr. McGiffin I said that. Next. Course name: Principles of Economics. I'm not ashamed to say that after going through this class, I really thought that I had uncovered the secrets of economics. But to the graduate, this course isn't just about supply and demand, but the fact that every minute we spend doing something, we are foregoing a potential better option somewhere else. Doesn't that make you wonder about all the poor decisions you've made in life? And finally, course name: Current Economic Problems and Policies. So, I'm not ashamed to say that after going through this class, I really missed Principles of Economics. That's no lie. There is really no simple way to for even the graduate to summarize this course. It is that challenging. But if push came to shove, I would simply say global economic crisis. That's it. But on a more serious note, while the question of what comes next is of extreme importance to us, we mustn't let it undermine what we have achieved today. Many of us, if not all of us, came into this foreign country to join a program knowing that we would have to adapt. The process of learning French and French culture, going through French bureaucracy, learning how to survive, and taking on a master's program would be discouraging to many, but here we are today. This day showcases our ability to adapt, our courage, and our strength. And so coming to AGS was not just about schooling, but an important stage in our life education. I am confident that many of us will go on to do special things, whether good, questionable, or let's face it, even despicable things. Time will tell. But whatever the outcome, we will forever be grateful to our professors for indoctrinating us and to AGS for allowing us to hone our reading and writing skills, because those are crucial skills. Fellow graduates, we may not have the technical know-how of engineers and astronauts, but remember that it is people like us who make the decisions which make the world go round. And it is people like us who sign the checks of engineers and surgeons. Most importantly, never forget that the journey is the reward. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Who am I introducing for the class gift? Cassandra will now give the 2013 class gift. I'm going to help her.
So, as is tradition here at AGS, the graduating class of 2013 would like to present a gift to Dr. Cividio and Dr. Fatimi, and we hope that the future generations will find this of use. Since we are a school of IR, we thought that it was quite important to have more maps and things like this nature. So we hope that you enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have come to the end of our graduation ceremony. Thank you all for coming. Those of you who are continuing the celebration with us tonight, please make your way to the French Senate by 7:30. It's only 10 minutes away on the other side of Luxembourg Gardens. And feel free to ask AGS staff if you need directions. So please stay seated until the faculty and graduates have left. Thank you again.
You're supposed to walk down this center.
Smile for the camera. Giorgio.
Senate in Luxembourg Gardens, and tonight is our graduation night. I'm officially a Master of International Relations and Diplomacy, and it's been a long process to get here, but here I am now.
What pushed it over the edge for me was AGS's location in Paris and the opportunity to have an American program in Europe to learn a new language and to really integrate into a new culture.
It's one of the best things about AGS since it is in Paris and we have access to international organizations and NGOs, and we get to actually meet and network with diplomats and different prestigious professors who have actual experience in the field of international relations. For me, that was one of the top things because, you know, in a lot of places in the US, you wouldn't get that kind of exposure. Perhaps the program would be good academically, but you wouldn't have access to these kinds of professors and people and organizations.
You have the ideal situation of being in a program where you are in the environment and studying theoretically while being able to actually live it practically, because you have a lot of opportunities like UNESCO and then all sorts of organizations you can find here. So being in the classroom teaches you the theory, and then being in the city like Paris and going through all of this helps you to actually put things in perspective.
If you want to go into the field of IR, nothing shows your marketability more than saying you can integrate into a new culture, you can learn a new language, you can become part of a new country, and that's really what I think the goal is for an international relations and diplomacy majors, is to show that you're flexible and you can learn and understand new cultures, new viewpoints, new ways of thinking, and that's really what AGS offered that no other program could offer.
IMBA courses are tailored for you to have a background. You have a background in finance, strategic management. How do I take some of this information and go into the real world and make a difference?
I think AGS is a fantastic school. They push you, and they push you hard, and they challenge you, but I feel so much more accomplished and celebrated and worthy as an analyst, as a researcher, as a writer, as a communicator, as a speaker. I think it's absolutely worth it.
I'm definitely open to being anywhere in the world. I feel like I have the skills and the tools now after going through this program, because you learn not just knowledge, but skills that should be able to help you to fit in any field. Of course, not technical fields, but anything that involves reading, writing, research, and knowledge of the world in general.